Margaret Foster had worked the checkout counter at Riverside Grocery for 23 years. At 59, she'd seen just about everything a small-town grocery store could offer. She'd watched children grow up, marriages fall apart, fortunes rise and fall. She'd learned to read people by what was in their carts and how they paid for it. But in all those years, she'd never seen anything quite like the two little girls standing before her now. They were twins, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with blonde hair and matching braids and wearing identical light blue dresses with denim overalls. They stood side by side, holding a single loaf of bread between them, their eyes wide and filled with worry. "That'll be $3.49, Margaret said gently, her experienced eye already telling her this was going to be a difficult transaction. The girls looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, the one on the left spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "We don't have money right now, but could we please take the bread and pay you later? We promise we'll come back." Margaret's heart clenched. She leaned forward slightly. "Where are your parents, sweethearts?" The other twin answered, her voice just as soft. "Our mama is sick. She's been in bed for 2 days. We don't have any food at home, and she can't get up to buy any. And your father?" The girls looked down. "He left last year. It's just us and Mama." Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. She'd been strictly instructed by management never to let anyone take items without paying. But these were children. Hungry children with a sick mother at home. Before she could respond, a voice came from behind the girls. "I'll pay for the bread." Margaret looked up to see a man in his early 60s, distinguished-looking with silver hair and kind eyes. He wore simple but expensive clothes, the kind that didn't announce their quality, but whispered it to those who knew. There was something about his bearing that suggested both confidence and humility. The twins turned, startled.
"Really?"
one of them asked. "Really?" the man said, stepping forward. He looked at Margaret. "The bread and—" He paused, looking down at the girls. "What else do you need at home?" The girls glanced at each other again. "We need milk," one whispered. "And maybe some soup for Mama, and bread for sandwiches. But the bread is okay. We don't want to be greedy." The man's expression softened. "You're not being greedy. You're taking care of your mother. That's being responsible." "Margaret," he said, reading her name tag, "could you help these young ladies get what they need? I'll cover everything." "Of course, Mr. Thornton," Margaret said, recognizing him now. Everyone in town knew Arthur Thornton, though few had ever spoken to him. He'd made his fortune in manufacturing decades ago and lived quietly in the large house on the hill overlooking the town. What happened next surprised even Margaret, who thought she'd seen everything. Arthur Thornton didn't just pay for the groceries and leave. He knelt down to the girl's eye level. "What are your names?" he asked gently. "I'm Emma," said one. "And I'm Lily," said the other. "Emma and Lily, those are beautiful names. Now, I'd like to ask you something important. Would it be all right if I came to visit your mother? I'd like to make sure she gets the help she needs." The girls looked uncertain. "We're not supposed to tell strangers where we live," Emma said cautiously. "That's very smart," Arthur said approvingly. "You're absolutely right to be careful. Tell you what, Margaret here knows me. She can come with us if that would make you feel safer. Would that be okay?" Margaret didn't hesitate. "My shift ends in 10 minutes. I'd be happy to come along." And so half an hour later, an unlikely trio made their way to a small apartment building on the edge of town. The building had seen better days, but someone had planted flowers in pots by the entrance, trying to bring some beauty to the faded facade. The girls led them up 3 flights of narrow stairs to apartment 3C. Inside, they found a woman in her mid-30s lying on a worn couch, covered with a thin blanket. She struggled to sit up when she heard voices, her face flushed with fever. "Emma? Lily? Who's there?" Her voice was weak and raspy. "Mama, we brought help," Lily said, rushing to her side. The woman's name was Christine Wheeler, and her story tumbled out in pieces over the next hour. She'd been working 2 jobs to support her daughters after her husband left, waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night. 3 days ago, she'd collapsed at work with what turned out to be severe pneumonia. She'd been too sick to work, too proud to ask for help, and too scared of losing her daughters to call any authorities. "I was going to go to the free clinic tomorrow," Christine said, her words punctuated by coughing. I just needed one more day to feel strong enough. Arthur listened to all of this without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When Christine finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Dr. Peterson? Arthur Thornton, I need you to make a house call. It's urgent. He gave the address and hung up. I can't afford a doctor, Christine protested weakly. You don't need to afford one. He's a friend and he owes me a favor. Arthur's tone left no room for argument. Dr. Peterson arrived within 30 minutes, examined Christine and confirmed the pneumonia diagnosis. He wrote prescriptions and gave her samples of medication he had in his bag. You need rest fluids and these antibiotics. No work for at least a week, possibly 2. After the doctor left, Arthur sat down at the small kitchen table with Emma and Lily while Margaret stayed with Christine. Girls, I want to ask you something. When you came to the store today to ask for bread, were you scared? They nodded solemnly. But you did it anyway because your mother needed help, didn't you? They nodded again. That's called courage. Do you know what courage is? Emma spoke up. It means being brave even when you're scared? Exactly right. And do you know what else it means? It means asking for help when you need it. Your mother has a lot of courage too, but sometimes adults forget that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Over the next weeks, Arthur Thornton became a regular presence in their lives. He paid Christine's rent while she recovered. He made sure the refrigerator was stocked. He arranged for a home health aide to check on Christine daily. He found her a single job that paid better than her 2 previous jobs. Combined, working in the human resources department of one of his companies. But more than the practical help, Arthur gave them something more valuable, his time and attention. He visited often, bringing books for the girls and sitting with Christine as she recovered, listening to her worries and offering quiet encouragement. One evening, about a month after that first meeting at the grocery store, Christine asked him the question that had been on her mind. Why are you doing all this for us? You don't know us. We're nothing to you. Arthur was quiet for a long moment, looking at Emma and Lily, who were doing homework at the kitchen table. That's not true. You're not nothing to me. In fact, you've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. What's that? Purpose, meaning, a reason to remember what matters. He turned to look at Christine. I had a daughter once, Rebecca. She would have been about your age. She died when she was 16, leukemia. My wife? Anne passed away 2 years later. The doctors said it was her heart, but I think she died of a broken heart. Christine's hand went to her mouth. I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago. 20 years. And for 20 years, I've been going through the motions. Running my businesses, managing my investments, writing checks to charities. But I haven't really been living. I haven't connected with people. I haven't let myself care because caring hurts when you lose what you love. He looked back at the girls. And then I saw Emma and Lily in that grocery store, trying to be brave, trying to take care of their mother, and something in me woke up. I saw my Rebecca in them. I saw what she might have done if I'd been the one who was sick and she'd been taking care of me. Tears were streaming down Christine's face now. You've saved us. We were drowning and you threw us a lifeline. You saved me too, Arthur said softly. You let me be useful again. You let me matter to someone. That's a gift you've given me. The relationship deepened over the months that followed. Arthur became like a grandfather to Emma and Lily. He taught them to play chess and helped with their homework. He took them to the library and to concerts and to his favorite restaurant. He showed up for school plays and science fairs. For Christine, he became something like a father, figure she'd never had, someone who believed in her, who saw her potential, who encouraged her to dream bigger than just survival. With his support and encouragement, she enrolled in night classes to finish her college degree. But Arthur was careful never to overstep or try to replace the girl's absent father. He made it clear that Christine was their mother and all decisions were hers. He was there to support, not to take over. One Saturday afternoon, nearly a year after that first meeting, Arthur invited them all to his house for lunch. The girls' eyes went wide when they saw the large house on the hill. You live here all by yourself? Emma asked. I do. It's much too big for one person. It was built for a family, but I've been living in it alone for a long time. They toured the house, and the girls were particularly fascinated by the library, which had floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books. Rebecca loved to read, Arthur told them. Anne and I always imagined this room full of children and grandchildren, everyone reading and sharing stories. Over lunch on the terrace overlooking the town, Arthur became uncharacteristically nervous. Christine noticed his hands shaking slightly as he set down his coffee cup. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "I want to talk to you about something. All of you." He looked at Emma and Lily, who stopped eating their sandwiches to listen. "This past year has been the happiest of my life in a very long time. You've become family to me, and I've been thinking, this house is too big for one person, and your apartment is too small for 3 people. What would you think about moving in here?" Christine's eyes widened. "Arthur, we couldn't possibly— Please, hear me out. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering family. There's a complete apartment on the east wing of the house. 3 bedrooms, private entrance, your own kitchen. You'd have privacy and space, but we'd be close enough to have dinner together, to watch the girls grow up together. I know I can't replace their father or their grandfather, but I can be someone who loves them and is there for them. Someone who's there for you, too." He pulled out some papers. "I've also been thinking about the future. I'm 63 years old. I have more money than I could ever spend. I'd like to set up trust funds for Emma and Lily's education. And Christine, I'd like to help you finish your degree and set you up in a good career. Not because I think you can't do it yourself, but because I want to make it easier. Because that's what family does." Christine was crying openly now. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. That's all I ask." Emma spoke up, her voice small but clear. "Mr. Thornton, does this mean we're your family now?" Arthur's eyes filled with tears. "If you'll have me, yes. That's exactly what it means." Lily came around the table and climbed into his lap. Something she'd been doing more and more often. "I think we should say yes, Mama. I like it here. And I like Mr. Thornton. He makes me feel safe." "He makes me feel safe, too," Emma added. Christine looked at her daughters, then at Arthur, and saw in his eyes the same thing she felt in her heart, a longing for family, for connection, for the chance to build something beautiful out of broken pieces. "Yes," she said softly. "Yes, we'd love to." They moved into the east wing of Arthur's house a month later. True to his word, he respected their space and privacy, while being wonderfully present in their lives. The house, which had been silent and empty for so long, filled with laughter and life. Emma and Lily thrived. With stability, good nutrition, and the absence of constant worry, they blossomed. They excelled in school, pursued their interests in art and music, and grew into confident, compassionate young women who never forgot what it felt like to be scared and hungry. Christine finished her degree and took a position as a social worker, inspired by her own experience to help other families in crisis. She worked with a local nonprofit that Arthur helped fund, creating programs to support single mothers. Arthur found that the house, which had felt like a mausoleum of memories, became a home again. He loved hearing the girls' footsteps on the stairs, their arguments over who got to use the computer first, their excited chatter about school and friends. He loved the family dinners and the movie nights, and the holidays that were no longer spent alone. On the 1-year anniversary of the day they'd moved in, Arthur gathered them together in the library. "I have something I want to give you," he said, pulling out an envelope. Inside were adoption papers. Not for the girls, Christine was their mother, and that would never change. But papers legally making Arthur their grandfather, giving him official status in their lives. "I want to make this permanent," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I want you to be my family legally, not just in our hearts. I want Emma and Lily to know that I'll always be there for them, that I'll always be their grandfather. And Christine, I want you to know that you have someone in your corner. Always. If something happens to me, I want to make sure you're all taken care of." Christine hugged him tightly. "You've already given us so much. You saved our lives, Arthur." "No," he said gently. "You saved mine. I was existing, not living. You 3 reminded me what it means to love, to hope, to look forward to tomorrow. You gave me back my life." Years later, when Emma and Lily were in college, they would sometimes talk about that day in the grocery store when they'd asked to pay later for a loaf of bread. How terrified they'd been. How certain they were that they'd be turned away. How their whole world had changed because a kind stranger had decided to help. "Do you think Mr. Thornton knew how much he'd end up meaning to us?" Emma asked once. "I think he was just as surprised as we were," Lily answered. "I think he helped us because it was the right thing to do. and then discovered that he needed us as much as we needed him. And she was right. Arthur often reflected on that day, on the choice he'd made to step forward instead of walking past. He'd gone to the grocery store that day feeling lonely and purposeless, going through the motions of a life that had lost its meaning. He'd heard 2 little girls ask for help, and something in him, something that had been dormant since Rebecca died, had woken up. The impulse to protect, to provide, to parent. And in following that impulse, he'd found his way back to life. Margaret Foster, the checkout clerk who'd witnessed it all, would tell the story for years afterward. "I've seen a lot of things working this register," she'd say, "but I've never seen anything quite like what happened that day. 2 little girls asking for bread, a millionaire who decided to do more than just buy them groceries. It was like watching a miracle unfold in real time, and in a way it was a miracle. Not the flashy kind, but the quiet kind that happens when people choose compassion over convenience, connection over comfort. The kind that happens when someone sees another person's need and decides to do something about it." Arthur Thornton had millions of dollars. He'd built companies and created jobs and written checks to countless charities. But his greatest legacy wasn't measured in dollars or buildings with his name on them. It was measured in the lives he touched directly, in the family he built from broken pieces, in the love he gave and received. And it all started with 2 brave little girls, a loaf of bread and the courage to ask for help. Sometimes the biggest changes in life come from the smallest moments. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to see another person's need and respond with kindness. That's what Arthur did. And in doing so, he discovered that the greatest wealth isn't what we have, but who we share it with. That the truest success isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the bonds we forge and the lives we touch. He'd set out that day to buy groceries. He'd come home with a family. And in the process, he'd saved 3 lives while saving his own. That's the unthinkable thing he did. Not just offering help, but offering love. Not just solving a problem, but building a future. Not just giving money, but giving himself. And in the end, that made all the difference.